Hi, this is Pam Worth with the Hello Health Encourage Your Wellness podcast. And today I have Galen Karlan-Mason. He's CEO and founder of GreenChoice, a San Diego-based food health intelligence company, inspired by a lot of his own experience and a team of scientists to make healthy, sustainable eating easier. Thank you for being on, Galen.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pamela.
So, not only do you do this, but then you've also been fractional CEO of Vermont Maple Syrup, which I happen to love Vermont maple syrup. So that's awesome.
Best. Yeah.
So
I stay pretty busy.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about your experience. Obviously, you've got a long laundry list. I didn't want to read like 2 pages of all the awesome things you've done and appeared on, but um, I'll certainly include all that in the show notes. But tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got here, and what you're passionate about going forward.
Mm. Well, I'd say I started the business Green Choice that I lead today about 7 years ago as a grad student, finding it very difficult to make the choices that I wanted to make around food. I was trying to shop healthy, and yet when I would go into the grocery store, I was met with thousands of choices. And I think we all can relate to being in an aisle of hundreds of cereals or snack bars or you name it, and just feeling overwhelmed if you're trying to get in and get out, but also make a choice that's like good for you. And the more I was hearing about additives in our food and how lax some of our regulatory standards were by comparison to countries in Europe or abroad, I found myself like wanting to vote with my dollars to like understand what was in the foods I was choosing, and yet just totally overwhelmed by all the claims, all the choice, and without the time to really dig in the way I wanted to. And so that was the origin for what is today Green Choice. And we are a public benefit food health intelligence company that analyzes foods' dietary and health impacts and supports both consumers, but also retailers, healthcare, and technology partners to find the foods that meet your dietary and health needs and values. And we do that with a very large database of products that we have analyzed across thousands of different dimensions and also scored their health impacts. And it ultimately is really all about bringing what is well established science into food's health impacts to the average person's fingertips in seconds, so that rather than spending the hours that I used to spend trying to figure this stuff out as a grad student, you in a minute or less can make an informed decision when you're in the aisle or at home around what you're eating, what you're buying, what you're feeding your family.
How does it work? And does it also tell you whether or not something is approved in like EU? I mean, because their food quality is so much better. I mean, I loved when I went to Iceland and they don't allow corn syrup, for instance, which I think is fabulous. Um, so tell us a little bit about what that means from a consumer standpoint. And then on the other side, if you're a retailer, how are you going to work with this so then you know that you're selecting good products for your customers?
Yeah, so I think it's helpful to just anchor folks in the state of the aisle is what I like to call it. Like what actually are you walking into when you walk into the average grocery store? So and then from there talk about what we investigate and what's considered when we score or analyze the food's health impacts. You go into the average grocery store, you've got 30,000 products in the average grocery store. Depending on the size of that store, it could be twice that. You might have 60,000 plus products to choose from. And that choice, while it's a privilege to have it, is also really overwhelming when you're trying to make a quick, informed decision that's good for you. The challenge that we all are up against is that we have in that choice a broad range of foods with a broad range of health impacts in any given category. So, to put this in perspective, about 30% of US food supply, 30 to 40% is highly processed. And consumption of that food is far greater. So we consume a disproportionately high amount of highly processed foods, largely because it's palatable. So this is a term that you'll hear about when people talk about ultra processed foods, but essentially it's foods that engineered to be addictive and hit all the evolutionary triggers that just drive us to consume more. So it's super high in sugar or sweetness, salty, savory, and really engineered to be able to for us to consume and overconsume. And so, this is really at the heart of our health epidemic in this country and a lot of the chronic conditions that plague so many Americans. And so when we analyze foods, we want to understand, are they nutritious for us? Do they contain healthful ingredients? Do they contain harmful ingredients? And understand a full picture of an item. So rather than, just focusing on a single nutrient like sugar, which is important to consider, or refined oils, also important to consider, or artificial ingredients, also important to consider, we look at all of that when we score a food's health impact. And so items are assessed across nutritional quality, processing level, ingredient safety, and we also look at climate footprint for folks that want to vote with their dollars and make more sustainable choices. 2/3 of bread are highly processed. 67% of bread in the US is highly processed, right? 1 in 3 meat and seafood products contain added sugar, right? Like, not typically a category that you would associate with having added sugar, but 1 out of every 3 do, right? 56% of frozen seafood, and you're like, what the heck? Right? 54% of specialty meats. So think about that deli aisle. And these aren't decisions that like any one of us can navigate. I mean, added sugar shows up in 60 plus different forms on an ingredient list. I couldn't tell you all of them off the top of my head. I might be able to tell you 10. And so when we analyze presence of added sugar, we're looking across that, and we've automated the analysis across all these foods. So it's really about taking what is super complex decision if you don't have a tool like GreenChoice, and making it really easy for someone who wants to make a better choice, but just again doesn't have that time. I'm hard pressed to find anybody these days that has the time to do all the research that's needed.
Well, and I'm not even sure half the time when even when I go to like, a Sprouts or a Wegmans or a Whole Foods, like I still struggle with, am I looking at what is actually healthy, or is it just gobbledygook and it's not necessarily healthy? I mean, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is very difficult. And, with all of, there's so many new brands that are vying for our attention every day. 15,000 new products launched in the US every year. I think it's more than that now. And so, they're all spending money to get our attention. They're all working to capture our interest in some way. And with the growth in demand for healthier foods or high protein foods or high fiber, or you name the trend, right? These brands will go all in on it, and they'll capitalize on it. And so they'll market it, and you'll see those claims front of package, and it can make it really complicated. I think right now we're seeing a huge high protein boom. And so there's almost like high protein everything. There's high protein waffles, and there's high protein chips, and there's high protein smoothies. And it's like, so is that healthy? Maybe, right? It really depends what's in the product and the full picture of that nutritional and ingredient profile.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Yeah,
Well, similarly, I went in the store the other day and I saw tallow potato chips, and I was like, okay, well, I know tallow's having a moment, but is that really
it is.
healthy or not? Like, I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, where do people go to find more information? How, like the regular person, and then if someone is like a small retailer that carries specialty foods, how would they go about kind of talk about those two channels?
Yeah. Important question. So if you're a regular person, okay, listening to this, and you're wanting to learn more about Green Choice, or see what our app is like in practice, honestly, just go to your app store, search Green Choice Food Scanner. It's a free app. Just it's not. We don't make our money in providing this app to the public. This for us is part of our core mission as a public benefit company. We want this information accessible and available to folks. It's why I started the business. And so I would say just install the app and start scanning foods. And I think what you'll find is you start to learn some things. Some things surprise you. Some things don't surprise you and confirm your assumptions, right? But you also can dive in to the score. So what you're going to see when you scan a food is a simple 1 to 100 score that reflects the health impacts of that food. It's color coded traffic light style, so simple as like green, yellow, orange, red. And based on that score, you can just compare items very, very quickly. You could go scan everything in your pantry, scan it in your fridge. I'm scanning stuff when I go into a Whole Foods or a Sprouts or wherever I'm shopping. Even though I've been doing this for so long, it still is making my life easier. We'll show you healthy swaps available to you. So if you scan, say, a chip and it gets a 40, we'll show you alternatives that are higher scoring that you could swap to as a way to trade up and make a healthier decision. And then you can even plug in your own personal dietary preferences. Like if there's certain ingredients that you're avoiding or certain nutrients that your doctor said you need to consume more of, like you can build those preferences in. And you can also dive into whatever level of detail you want. So we explain why an item got the score it did. And so you can see exactly why this item is flagged as highly processed or why this item is flagged as having ingredient concerns. And you could see the toxic additives that are being flagged. So our goal is like, in an ideal world, if you know the app, the dating app Hinge, their joke is like, an app so good that like you stop using us, right? Like we're not like these others. We want you to meet your match, right? We want you to learn. If you want to learn and you don't need to use GreenChoice in a year, that's a win for us. So that option is there to dive in. And also, if you just want to score, and simple comparison, you don't have to dive in at all. So that would be how to find and use GreenChoice and start today. And then for a retailer, essentially, we've just taken this data, we've taken our health scores, we've taken this key attribute information, is what we call it, around diets and ingredient preferences and chronic conditions and what foods are right for them. And we've made it accessible to retailers so that they can bring it into their stores and into their own apps. So it's seamless for the shopper. So, retailers that we help support in this capacity, their customers have this right on the shelf. So you can see our scores right on the price tag, right next to the price, color coded as well. You could scan a QR to see why it got the score it did. You'll see key attributes highlighted, like minimally processed or free of artificial ingredients. We're powering that data for partners, and we've got some really easy ways to plug that into a retail experience. And what we find is this isn't just great for shoppers, it's also good business for retailers, that we can drive lift of healthier options in the store and actually create a more loyal shopping experience where folks want to come back more. And we find that our users for a retailer are 2.4 times less likely to be infrequent shoppers than non-users. We find that we can drive lifts of 6% on healthier options in store. We just completed a study seeing this. And so we're really excited about the changes that we can drive and the health outcomes that we can drive.
No, I love that. And I think it helps. Yeah. I mean, it helps everyone in so many ways to have the data available to you. Um, what about, I'll just randomly ask, what about like the meat counter, the poultry counter, things that wouldn't necessarily be processed? Is there anything that should be thought about or concerned or?
Mm. I would say don't assume.
Mhm.
Don't take for granted like that a category you think is minimally processed is minimally processed. And the reason I say that is like 20, okay, for example, 24% of dairy products contain added sugar. So, I think I hate to say it, like you've got an app like GreenChoice that can really assist you. Um, if you're not using the app, or even at the, while you're using it, flip over the package, look at the ingredient list, and just see like, does this contain anything I don't recognize? Like, does this contain anything that just doesn't makes sense. And I will say, just because you don't recognize the ingredient doesn't mean that it's bad for you. I hear a lot of people saying, like, only buy stuff with ingredients you recognize. That's honestly an oversimplification because you have nutrient fortification. So you have nutrients added in that show up under names that are not like stuff you'd see in your cupboard, but it's not necessarily harmful or bad for you in any capacity. But that's where Green Choice can help you, and or just look it up. But I think the flipping the package over, looking at the ingredients is going to be the first tell, and then you start to kind of learn and get a sense of what to expect. And it's really just remaining curious when you're shopping, and I know that can be a lot of work. You don't have to do it all the time, but especially if you're trying new products or you want to understand what's really in your fridge, I'd say just flip over the pack, look at that ingredient list, and scan it if you've got the app.
That's awesome. Thank you. Um,
Yeah.
Anything else I've not asked or you want to touch on or anything that you want to make sure that people know?
What I would say is that we right now have a health epidemic in this country. And I think people hear that, but it is sobering to really understand what this means, right? So, five of the top 10 causes of death in this country are diet related. 60% of adults in America have a diet related disease. That is a chronic condition that is completely preventable. That is suffering that is completely avoidable. And if you have hypertension or diabetes or you're pre-diabetic or kidney disease or any number of these conditions, like there is a path to having that no longer plague your life. And there are plenty pharmaceutical drugs out there that you can take to help manage this condition. But if you want to go root cause, it's very well studied. The answer is in nutrition and lifestyle decisions. And those are the harder decisions to make. Those are the harder things to put to practice. But I think it really just starts with exactly what we talked about, right? It's just starting to get a little more curious and pausing and saying, is this good for me? And then there's great resources out there. Like I would really be encouraging people to like see if you can get time with a dietitian. Registered dietitians are amazing resources here. In many cases, they're a lot more affordable than you think. In some cases, your insurance will cover it, though not as much as I wish they would. GLP-1s are huge right now, and they're incredible like interventions in weight loss that can really help people shift their consumption. And just for those that are listening, when I'm saying GLP-1, that's like Wegovy and Ozempic, right? These drugs incredible for weight loss, but they all need to be paired with changes in what you consume in nutrition. And they're actually going to require you to eat more high fiber, high protein, nutrient dense foods because you're consuming less calories. And so again, I think whatever your path is to kind of getting to better health, food is going to be an integral part of that. And the best way to engage in that is just bringing curiosity and then looking to resources like a Green Choice app, like your local dietitian. Ask your doctor for a referral to the dietitian. Like there's ways, because conventional Western medicine is not designed to. We have sick care. We don't have health care in this country, and I think that's changing more and more. But the more you can be your own advocate in that, like I think the better the results. And I wish people the best on this journey because it's definitely not easy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Galen. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.